Hey YouTube, this is Kerry from Poetry, Texas, bringing you a video on a IBC Firewood Tote lid design that I came up with. This lid is hinged, it self-latches, and it slopes so that it sheds rainwater. Hope you enjoy. I started using IBC totes to store and move around my firewood because I got really tired of all the moving and stacking that's involved with cutting, splitting, and storing and using firewood. So I got the ideas for the IBC tote design off of YouTube. This is what most people seem to do. They cut what I would call the front out of the IBC tote to make it accessible. I found several different lid designs on YouTube, but I thought there could be something better, so I've been working on my own design. What I've come up with is a lid that hinges up, and whenever it comes down, it self-latches so that it doesn't blow up in the wind. This is basically the pieces of the tank that you will use. The valve would have been right there. The way I mark the tank is to lay the side that I want to keep on the floor. This will be the top side of the tank where the big screw-on cap is located. I measure 9 inches up from the floor. This will become the front of the lid. On the other side, or basically what would be the bottom of the tank, measure up 4 inches. I like just stacking some wood up, laying a board across it to get my 9-inch dimension and my 4-inch dimension, and then just use the board as a straight edge and draw across. After you do the top and the bottom, you can flip it up on its side. Eyeball marking around the corners, and then use a straight edge to draw the sides. Draw these lines. Here are some pictures of the tank, all marked up and ready to cut. It takes me about 5 minutes with a cordless circular saw to cut both lids from one plastic tank. You can use a jigsaw, sawzall, or whatever is your favorite tool. Be sure to use at your own risk. I take no responsibility for your injury yourself. Now that we have the lids cut out, next step, I take a board, clamp the board on the back side, about 1 inch down from the bottom of the top rail. That helps position the lid for the next step, and that is making the hinges, hinging the lid. What I use for hinges is 4 hose clamps. I bought these hose clamps off of Amazon. It's basically 10, 12 bucks for like a pack of 20 stainless steel hose clamps. I think they say 21 to 38. That's the millimeter range of the hose clamps. They're probably about 1 3/8 inches, I think, at their widest point, 1 3/8 inches, 1.5 inches. Now to make the slots for the hinges, or for the hose clamps. So take an oscillating saw with a very narrow blade. I come in right next to a vertical upright, make a plunge cut below and a plunge cut above. You can run your hose clamp through those cuts and run this bar, and that becomes a hinge. So I do right on the inside of this vertical, on the inside of this vertical, and then I'll do to the outside of the center 2 verticals. That puts 4 hose clamps on there. Those then will rotate on this upper rail and function as a hinge. So I'll go ahead and make those cuts. Make sure your lid is sitting down on your gauge board.
Also make sure your lid is centered inside of the cage. So I guess I've made that cut a different place than I'd originally stated, but works just the same. Now we take the hose clamp, open it up, and you can actually lift this up. Makes it a little bit easier, especially if you got wood in the tote. I'm retrofitting this tote.
Here I went back and widened the kerf on my cuts to make it easier to feed the hose clamps through.
Once that you have all 4 hose clamps fed through your slots, it's time to attach the lid to the cage. Don't make these very tight. You want to leave them fairly loose so that it can swivel. So these can swivel on that top rail real easy. If you tighten them up very tight, they tend to bind up. We're done with our gauge board now, so we can take the clamps off and the board out. you can see we have a lid that readily hinges. So now comes the time to make it a latching lid. So to do this, we're going to take our Sharpie, where the lid is touching the top rail, make a mark. Just eyeball a line right up that edge. Do this on both sides. This doesn't have to be perfect. I'll be using an 1¼ inch hole saw to make some holes. I want this lid, the bottom of this edge, to be 1 inch below this top rail to match the back. So if I go 1 inch plus 1/2 inch is another 5/8. That's where I drill my hole. Next, we need to elongate this hole so it will fit over a greater area of the top rail. To do this, I just take the pilot bit, put it up against the back side of the hole I just made, have my drill at a steep angle, and I'm just going to cut through at an angle to make an elongated hole. Just like that. Here is a little more detailed look at that elongated hole, and how I make that elongated hole. Basically put the pilot bit in the hole, roll it around until the hole saw hits in the existing hole. Try to keep it parallel with the bottom. Just make your cut. My angle was a little too flat on that, so I didn't quite get all the way through, but it'll work just fine.
Here's a picture of a better elongated hole, and now at this point elongated holes are done on both sides, so we're moving on to the next step.
Now that this is done, we're going to come in and we're going to make a cut right there with our oscillating saw, and we're going to trim this little rounded edge off on each side, and then we will be done.
The mark that I made was from the front of the hole to the bottom of the lid. Now after you make that cut, you're going to be left with a little point sticking up, which is a remainder of that circle. That is the little piece that you need to cut off so that your tab is parallel. You don't want that little point sticking up to catch on the top rail of the tote cage when you're operating the tab.
So the idea behind it is that these little tabs will drop in and latch behind the top rail, and now wind can't blow it up. Whenever you want to get into the tote, you just push the little tab in on each side, and it hinges up. Just like that. You can flop the lid all the way over on the back. time, I believe you're going to wind up breaking your lids if you do that. Also, it seems like whenever you do that, you're kind of a little contrary whenever you pull them back. Usually these sides will kind of be bowed out a little bit. What I have done is made a kickstand for the tote. This is just a regular clamp for a piece of EMT conduit. It's 3/4 inch EMT conduit clamp that I just bent out to make a little catch. So what I do, just do that for a kickstand. I have 3-point pallet forks on my tractor, and when I have these totes on the back of my tractor, the lid will actually stand up, lean up against my tractor, and as long as the wind's not blowing too bad, it'll pretty much stay there. If the wind is blowing bad, I could throw a bungee cord around it. Here's the tote on my tractor. But when you're done, take your kickstand, throw it in the tote, self-latch, you're good to go. Hope this helps y'all with your firewood storage and totes. I tell you, totes have really already paid off, saving me a lot of time on the cutting, stacking, and moving of firewood. So I can go right from cutting to splitting, loading right in the tote. The only time I touch it after that is when I move the wood from the IBC tote to the rack. Otherwise, I just grab it with the tractor, move it from place to place. I've actually got several totes on the back of my property, out of sight, out of mind, sitting back there curing out for next year. So I love these things. These are awesome.
From what I can tell, one of these 275-gallon totes holds about 1/3 of a cord of wood, which probably weighs between 12 and 1,500 pounds depending upon the moisture content. That little tractor I showed you earlier is a 25-horse Kubota L series, and I really have to rev it up pretty good to get it to lift one of these when I've got it full of green wood. Hope that helps. Hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know if you have any questions.